Hello and welcome to the Throw-In Hurling show with me, Michael Verney, and delighted to be joined once again by Eddie Brennan and John Mullane to look ahead to a mouth-watering weekend of All-Ireland semi-final action. We're also delighted to have special guests this week with Limerick legend Ciarán Carey joining us. Ciarán, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. Good to be here. Good to see you, man. Talk to you in a while.
No, we'll throw it straight back to you now. Just Ciarán, what's it like in Limerick with the drive for 5, the anticipation probably building, you've the Munster in the bag, 6 in a row done. There must be a good old hum around the place coming into this weekend. Such a huge game, looking like we could have close to capacity in Croke Park as well.
Yeah, without a doubt, Mike. It's a surreal atmosphere because no matter where you go in Limerick, whether you're going to work or whether you're going training or whether you're going to the gym or going for a walk with the dogs, you're meeting somebody who's going to draw down the match. So it's the hot topic. It's it's a topic that everybody's talking about. But the beauty about it, because I met a few players there recently, none of them are mentioning that. I suppose they've been very loyal to stick to the process, and they know it's there. They're aware of it. But to be fair, none of them really are actually speaking about it. But the public are obviously extremely excited. And as I said, everybody seems to be talking about it.
Ned, I'll just throw it to you. It is a cracking weekend of action ahead. We've had a couple of lull weeks, let's call a spade a spade. The All-Ireland quarterfinals were not that good on the eye, but this is kind of what we've been waiting for. The best 4 teams in the country duking it out over a weekend, 24 hours, and it's set up to be a belter of a weekend.
It is, Mike. Sure, geez, look, it's in the run up to Christmas. It's going visiting Santi before the main man arrives. Do you know what I mean? Before the All Ireland, so it's brilliant. I like the whole weekend of All Ireland semi-finals, albeit the time on Saturday could be better, but it is what it is. And from a hurling perspective, it's something that you'd be hugely looking forward to. And I think it's fair to say probably when the dust settles on everything, we probably have the 4 best teams there now at the moment. I think, we've seen from them this year at stages, it's hard to make a case for any team that was, that has been better than them. So if you're looking from the point of view of spectacles, well, you have your 4 best teams duking it out. And I think there's a lot at stake. There's almost little subplots in both of them. Kilkenny, it's a trilogy of semi-finals with Clare. With Kilkenny having won 2 of them, so it's probably, I think it's an Everest moment for this Clare team. And then on the other side of it, you have Cork, who were the only team to have beaten Limerick in the championship this year. Now the question is, can they, again climb their own Everest and get to an All-Ireland final? Having been there a couple of years ago. So mouth-watering ties in store. A lot of what they do, a lot of ifs and buts, a lot of tactics. So it couldn't be set up any better. And look, I'm looking forward to the weekend in no small way. It should be brilliant. I think we're going to get 2 great games.
Well, I'll just throw it to you. We'll look at Cork and Limerick first. 2 big semi-finals, but I just have a feeling it's a little bit bigger. It seems like there's more on the line, obviously, with the All-Ireland champions involved as well. Mull, does the Páirc Uí Chaoimh meeting in May have much of a bearing on this game? Does it have much of a bearing from a Cork point of view in that we've taken Limerick down very, very recently? Why can't we do it again? From a Limerick point of view, does it put the bit firmly between their teeth again? There's not too many teams that have beaten them twice throughout this run. How much of a bearing does that Páirc Uí Chaoimh game have in this game on Sunday?
Well, I'll start off with Limerick. I don't think any team has beaten Limerick twice within the same calendar season as in the championship. Within the last 6-7 years. So look, if you're a Limerick player and you're going to relate back to that fixture back in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, the aftermath of the match, being involved in a cracking match, I'm sure there's an element of pain there and an element of can't wait, we've a score to settle with Cork again. And I'm sure an awful lot of those players will be reminding themselves back to that date in Páirc Uí Chaoimh that that feeling, that 5 minutes in the aftermath of that match where the supporters came onto the pitch and they were probably within their rights to come on the euphoria after that match, Cork players celebrating. And look, the Limerick players, I can only imagine what way they're feeling and what way they're going to bring to the table this weekend. I'm sure Ciarán has been there before, Eddie's been there before, even myself. You use anything you can to get an edge, and I feel there's going to be a bit of an edge to this match the weekend. And I think Limerick, are back where they want to be. They had that break of 4 weeks, coming back into the Croke Park factor. They perform in Croke Park, but the one beautiful thing from a Limerick point of view, that there's a small bit of a score to settle here, and that look, Limerick are on the cusp of greatness, the cusp of history, and they won't want this Cork team, doing them over twice within the same championship. And I think they're going to have the bit between their teeth the weekend. And look, you'd always hear that within the Limerick setup that, there's an element of calmness. They don't do roaring or shouting, but I think that's a load of crap. I'd love to be a fly in the wall in that Limerick dressing room the weekend, because I think there'll be an awful lot of noise. I think there'll be an enormous amount of energy, and there'll be an enormous amount of drive to overcome this Cork team the weekend. I think Limerick will bring it. From a Cork point of view, what way do you look at it? You break down that game, and how good Cork were against Limerick that last year when they picked up the win. What they'll be looking at is reverting back to that fixture in the Gaelic grounds last year where they came up short by, what was it? There was a point in it in the end. I think under this Cork management team, I think Limerick have only beaten them once, and that was in the Gaelic grounds last year. They beat them in the league. They beat them in the Munster league final. So they had a good record against Limerick. Cork will be saying the Croke Park factor will possibly suit Limerick, but they'll be also relating back that, the dimensions of Páirc Uí Chaoimh play out something similar to Croke Park, albeit the surroundings of Croke Park are way different to the Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And I think, Cork will come into this game believing that they can overcome Limerick. And, I think tradition will come into it as well. Leave aside this remarkable run that Limerick are on. Cork have always had a great record against Limerick. And I think Cork will fully believe going up to Croke Park that, what, we are good enough. We have the players. All we have to do is look for a performance, try and maximise ourselves and see where it takes us. And if they can get a maximum performance and if Limerick are a little bit below par, who knows where it could take them the weekend,
But just John, on that one there, I think that's a good point. And I know we used it as motivation when we were beaten by a team, you wanted to bite at them. We couldn't wait to get at Cork in 06, probably Tipperary in 11. Them type of scenarios, even ye beat us in league final in 07. We were looking forward. I think a lot of teams, the majority of teams, use that as a motivation. But I think what separates these Limerick boys, I think, is they don't get too drawn into the emotional side of it. And I'm not saying they're not emotional. They clearly are, because they enjoy what they're doing. They're a very together bunch. But I think they don't let that cloud it. And sometimes that emotion can cloud your build-up, I suppose, in a way. And I think that the one thing that and again, I'm surmising this, that I'd say they constantly get reminded of it. Stick to the plan, lads. Stick to what we're really good at. Trust it. And I know your point is right. I still think there's little pods of lads privately. You'll go, oh, Jesus, I want to crack off these boys. That's individual stuff. But I think it's something that I think the likes of Kinerick, again, I'm surmising, I think, and maybe Ciarán Carey was trying to sometimes, and I think that's what separates these boys. They're able to kind of box that emotion off and use it in the right way without it interfering with what the group focus is.
Yeah. Ciarán, I just throw it to you. Did Cork do Limerick a favour in some respects in exposing a few chinks in their armour that night down in the park? If you looked at it, Waterford tried to go at them under high ball in that last round robin game, no joy whatsoever. Clare tried to go at them with long ball in the Munster final, no joy whatsoever. Like, the Limerick half-back line was probably exposed a small bit in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, but again, those boys look like they have the bit between their teeth to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, there's a bit what John and Eddie are saying is correct, right? And to me, I suppose that performance down in Park Keefe, I suppose it's 6 years in the making, okay? And I suppose their second half performance against Tipperary in the round robin when it was a draw at half time. Like, if Cork are going to have any chance, they have to come with that same type of a game plan. That's a given. And if they don't come with that, I suppose ferocity and I suppose belief, they're the one team this year that actually stayed with Limerick for the last 10 minutes. So you've always a great chance if you're there or thereabouts with 10 minutes to go, then automatically as an opposition, you should be able to self-right. We've to crank it for 10 minutes and we've a chance. Because Limerick, to be fair, tradition in the last 6 or 7 years, that's where they really cranked it up in the last 10 minutes. Without a doubt, Cork did a bit of exposing that particular night. But as you rightly pointed out, Burns and Hannon, to a man, have answered that call since. Like, the beauty about the weekend, like when you go to Croke Park for a semi-final, you have to deliver the goods, and if you don't, you're knocked out. And Croke Park, to me, is as equal as the Gaelic grounds is to Limerick. So that's how Limerick are so comfortable in Croke Park. And, I give Cork a great chance to have serious forwards, to have forwards that will hurt Limerick. But I have a question mark on their defence. Are they good enough to hold Limerick's forwards for the hour? And if they can do that, they have a chance. But going back to 2019 when Kilkenny won the All-Ireland, yeah, without a doubt. And I would phrase that Limerick got caught because Limerick haven't played as poor as that or underperformed as poor as that since 2019. And they've met Kilkenny on several occasions since, and they looked after them by, as Eddie said, sticking to the process, improving, and looking at the opposition. And you can be sure Paul Kinnaird and John Kiley has that Park Keefe performance well fine-combed, and whatever deficiencies or whatever mistakes or unforced errors are made that night, you can be sure you won't see too many being repeated. Son.
You always say...
Well, here's the big one, Ciarán, right? Cork exposed an awful lot of frailties in Limerick that night by going right down the centre, right? So Burns and Hayes didn't follow, and you even relate back to it. I can still visualise it in my head. Harnedy getting an enormous amount of joy, and Harnedy nearly had the free run of it. So what happened that night was Burns held his position. At times, Hayes held her position, and Hannon at times was, he was exposed because the reason he was exposed because Cork flooded that centre with runners off of the breaking ball. Now, we do know that Limerick, like to keep their structure within the back line from 9 back to 1, and sometimes their half forward line drop. So, and we know that Kiley and Kinnaird will take the learnings from that game. So now, the learnings that they're possibly going to have to take from that game is that there might have to be a structural change within their defensive setup the weekend, particularly on the Cork puck out. If Cork elects to go something similar and go say, right, we're going to lamp ball down on Hannon, we're going to get runners off the breaking ball. Remember, Hayes came in, broke the ball down, Barrett was onto it, Harnedy got an enormous amount of joy. So now, what I would be very, very interested in is what Kinnaird, the planning of what Kinnaird is going to bring back to kind of counteract that if Cork throw it at Limerick the weekend. And plus, as well, I know Doc O'Rourke, I'll be friendly with Doc O'Rourke, Pat Ryan. They're going to say to themselves, well, look, Limerick are going to be ready for that. So what's to say that, they're not going to come up with something different and Limerick are not going to be ready for that? So I throw that question back to Ciarán, like, what way will in particularly Kinnaird go at it in regards if they have to change up the structure, Ciarán?
I'd imagine, John, right, and down through the years, the last 4 or 5 years, any team that they're playing, there might be a player that's hot, right? And I suppose, what are they going to do on Kelly? What are they going to do on TJ? No, what are they going to do on Barrett, right? And I suppose they've always answered the call, right? I would imagine there, right, like you'll have Colin O'Neill floating around there who has played centre back. You have William O'Neill also floating around there who has played centre-back. So I'd imagine more so than babysitting the player, I'd imagine they're going to be babysitting and minding the space and the grass, and they'll probably put bodies back there. That's what I'm guessing what they will do. That's if Cork are going to go. Now, in fairness to Seamus Harmony, like he's the one player that I will say, even when Cork are playing poor, Harmony will catch the ball off anyway, because he's very good at high fielding. But and he's done it in Burns on several occasions. But it just happened on that night. Now, to be fair, leading into that match, John, you could see that Limerick 5, 6, 7 weren't as dominant as they were. So, to me, automatically, you have to hit where they're weak. And they were weak coming into that game. And Cork did the right thing and they made it pay. But now there's a bit of time since. The lads have improved. So it's going to be interesting what Pat Ryan is going to do. I'd imagine they're going to try. But I'd imagine Kenneth and Kiley are going to be minded, flooding the areas and watching the spaces. I'd imagine.
Ciarán, you brought up about the Cork defence, and I'm glad, because Limerick are the champions, we're always wondering how can a team get at them? Where are potential weaknesses? But if we're looking at weaknesses in the Cork setup, Eddie, I'd throw it to you. They won that game against Limerick. They conceded 326, albeit. They lost to Waterford. They conceded 225. Against Offaly, they conceded 319. With due respect, Offaly are a second-tier team coming up. They conceded 21 against Dublin, which wasn't a bad tally to concede. But can that Cork defence, Eddie, contain what Limerick are going to throw at them on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, that's been a question that's been hanging over this Cork team for quite some time now. And again, we've often said that real steel through the spine of the defence is what's been probably holding off, because they have the attacking armoury. They're able to go at you. They're able to punch holes. And you could argue maybe that night below in the park, it was a bit like the Michel Platini football. He scored 3, we'll score 4. And that's grand on a one-off where it's just let's fly. But I think once you come to Croke Park on All-Ireland semi-final day, I think first and foremost, you're going to have to attack the match to win it. But I think first and foremost, you need to be very, very defensively secure. And I think sometimes this Cork outfit are a little bit consumed with mixing up their play and bringing it out short with actual out-and-out steely defending. And I think when that has needed to be done, Limerick have done it better than anyone. And I think the fix for them will be Hannon and the boys got caught maybe 10 yards into no man's land that night. They were neither back far enough nor neither forward far enough. So I think they will simply look at that and say, right, the standard of our communication that night, the standard of our awareness wasn't good enough. Whether that was the guys coming from deep behind them, tracking, the Cork Toomey and Co when they were coming out behind them, or Alan Connolly. I think that's a communication fix that Limerick will fix. And I think the standard of how they applied themselves that night was maybe a bit off, and they will go after that. But going back to the other side of it, I just think if Cork are to progress in this match, they really have to make sure, there was 2 goals the last day, real Limerick stuff, where they squeeze you and take the ball off you. And I just thought Sean O'Donoghue's one particularly, when you go back and look at it, his body position is all wrong on that. When you're receiving a shot like that, you almost have to be bladed, that you're taking the ball and you're getting your eyes up straight away. He had his back completely turned to Garrod, and Garrod sensed it. And once that ball left the stick, he was gone. So I think that type of stuff, you take out those 2 errors that night, would we have been talking about a different type of a game? But that's the bread and butter for this Limerick attack. They are the best attacking unit to defend and terrorise a back unit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think Cork are going to have to make sure that first and foremost, they do not leak cheap scores, that if they're bringing the ball out, they need to be really very effective with it. Maybe get to the channels, get out to the sidelines where they're taking it out of the red zone. I think we've seen it, was it 2 years ago, maybe below or last year in Limerick, wasn't it Shamie Flanagan turned over Donoghue or O'Leary coming out with the ball, and they ended up sticking the ball in the back of the net. So they have to make sure that doesn't happen, I think, first and foremost. They're going to have to accept, they're going to cough up probably 25, 26 points to this Limerick team. But I think if they set their marker at that and trying to avoid goals, I think that's the foundations of where they're going to maybe get a victory.
Ciarán, just
Eddie, Can I just come back there for 1 second? And Eddie made a huge point there in defending, and I suppose I'm going to say the act of defending, right? And I remember the first few balls in Dermot and Declan Hannon. I think they conceded a goal in the second half as well. Whereas normally a 5 or a 7, if you're contesting the ball, I suppose the letter of the law, it stops here, it doesn't go behind. And I suppose the halfbacks in the modern game are contesting, trying to catch, right? And I suppose the act of defending is blocking it and getting it away. And the goal they conceded in the second half, I'm not sure, was Dermot Burns and Dan Morrissey with 2 or 3 Cork players. All I saw was 5 hands going up. The ball broke and a goal. So the act in defending, there's still room for it. And as Eddie said there, and if Cork can actually do that, get the fundamentals right first in defence, they have a chance. What are we going to say? Sorry,
Ciarán, I would have loved to hurl behind you, because the biggest bugbear for me in the full back line is, why is my half back line not stopping the ball? Because if you stop the ball, you take out so many potential plays out of the game. I think now in the modern game in particular, lads are fixated with the catch, or fixated. Just stop the thing. If you stop the thing, it's not travelling another 20 or 30 yards inside. It's also great, Ciarán, to have another defender on the show today, because all we talk about is attacking and goals and flair, and the boys don't appreciate the miserable, ignorant stuff enough. So it's great.
Oh yes, we do, Verney. Go out at you. We had fucking lads like you open our backs for long enough.
Ciarán, I just showed you big talk of Barry Nash being out for the weekend with a hamstring injury. I believe they're giving him as much time as possible to feature. How much of a blow would that be, Ciarán? And if he is out though, like you're looking at, Finn was fit to Tog for the Munster final but just didn't make the 26. Flanagan is back in now, he's had a month. Darragh Donovan was fit to Tog for the 26 in the match day Munster final, just didn't feature. Even Richie English is back in the mix as well. Might be one player out, but there's plenty of other lads coming in as well. So it's a 3 or 4 prong question. And will Shane O'Brien hold on to his place, Ciarán, as well? I know there's about 40 questions in that.
Right, okay. Yeah, and I suppose sticking to the defender first, yeah, there is, by all accounts, Barry's after pulling the hammer. And as John Mullane made a great point earlier, and we were talking off the area, as corner backs go, himself and Mikey Butler, they'd stand out straight away. They would get a ball and thunder up and probably get a few scores. So from that point of view, he will be lost. But in fairness to Limerick, their 6 backs really are very versatile. But not only that, you've always the option of pulling Cathal O'Neill back, who's played wing back. You've also the option of pulling William O'Donoghue back, who has played wing back. So I'd imagine if Sean Finn is fully fit, he'll slot straight in there. But, Limerick, to be fair to him, and if you take Dan Morrissey, right, you wouldn't know Dan Morrissey's even playing sometimes. Brilliant. But yet he's doing his job. And he's doing it kind of very sufficient, slightly bog standard. I don't care what kind of standard it is, but he's doing a proper full back's job. And he's very rarely mentioned, right? And Sean Finn equally is as effective, and Casey. So I wouldn't have a major issue if Barry, obviously he will be last for thundering forward, without a doubt. But so far as have we covered to go in there, without a doubt. So I wouldn't be that concerned. Going back to young Shane O'Brien, yeah, he showed an awful lot of maturity for me the last day. He had an early chance of a goal on his weak side, and it didn't come off. So that's an old test of your character and your mental toughness, how you're going to react to that. And I'd imagine if Shane O'Brien is putting in the performance level in training that he was doing on matches, I'd imagine it's going to be a serious headache for John Kiely and Kinnerk. So he could get the green light because he's a great player and has settled in brilliantly this year for Liverpool.
And they know probably what they're going to get out of Flanagan if he comes in.
And I think John Kiely has such faith in Flanagan. I really think he's one of the lads that John Kiely just loves because of what he just brings absolute war in a good sense. Like he's a player I admire because he just does it with a smile on his face.
And you have to remember
very well before he got injured.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
You have to remember he's tried and tested in Croke Park.
Yeah.
So and likewise is Darragh Donovan tried and tested in Croke Park. And I'm sure when they come down, sit down, pick out the team, they're going to be scratching their heads saying, Jesus, there's going to be 1 or 2 lads disappointed. Well, look, there's not going to be 1 or 2 lads disappointed because the way Limerick operate now, it's you know, they nearly use their 19, 20 lads, and it's starters and finishers. But I'm sure when they sit down to pick the starting 15, right, saying, right, we need to get off the good start and possibly get off the good start after and be ahead after 55, 60 minutes. I'm sure that Darrow Donovan and Flanagan, if they're going well in training, I think the two of them will definitely start.
They are great.
I agree. You're right. I agree.
They're great headaches to have when you have all these all-stars coming back, aren't they?
First world problem.
Yeah, exactly. Mull, I just throw it to you. There's a lot of tasty matchups, but anything in particular that you're looking forward to on Sunday?
And Mull loves a good matchup.
Yeah, well, look. You go back to the last time they met down at Parky Queeve. You know what didn't kind of get noticed, and Ciarán would even tell you, was the role of Ethan Toomey. When Ethan Toomey, like Keane was playing number 11, and he was coming off of Rob Downey. He was giving Rob Downey a bit of bother early doors, and so what Cork done then, they sat Ethan Toomey back on Keane Lynch, and then Rob Downey was able to sit in the pocket. Now Ethan Toomey isn't going to start. So will Joyce? We've seen Joyce in midfield. Will Joyce pick up that role, which will possibly allow Rob Downey to sit, with Joyce possibly picking up Keane Lynch. Now, look, Keane Lynch mightn't be at number 11.
Tough one though, Mull, isn't it? Tough one though if that is the role Joyce plays, because he's not a designated man marker. He hurls ball. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
I foresee Joyce going back into the half back line, and you could see someone like Tim O'Mahony or someone like that going into midfield. But whoever goes into midfield, if Keane Lynch is at number 11, or if Colin O'Neill is at 11, and two of them don't necessarily, sit in that number 11 role, that gives Cork a small bit of a headache. So they're going to possibly run with the same thing again. So, like Ethan Toomey done so well the last day. Now Ethan Toomey isn't available. I'm sure he will be on the bench, and he will be the backup call. So for me, I think the biggest one is if Colin O'Neill or Keane Lynch find themselves in that number 11 role, who's going to pick them up? Possibly could be Tim O'Mahony, possibly could be Joyce again. And I think it's going to have a major effect on the game. And I think it's going to have a big say in how this game plays out,
I tell you, we won't go into it in too much detail, but Cork are going to have their hands full with Keane Lynch. But Keane has his hands full, by all accounts, Ciarán, after welcoming two little babbies into the world over the weekend.
My God, he has more than his hands full. He did, yeah. He said of twins there the weekend. He's partner there now. So great news, very exciting.
And two new hurlers for the well in time, Ciarán, with a bit of luck.
Yeah, I think they're calling one of them Kieran and the other fella Ciarán. And
Go man.
I'm really joking. Come here, go back to John's point there, right? And I suppose, Limerick have so many good players up front. It's hard to kind of pick one or two. Like, you have to go about your business. I believe the match is going to be won between the areas of 5 and 12. That area. And if Cork can get serious joy to 10 and 11, 12 for the full hour and 10 minutes, I would give them a great chance.
Okay.
Just on matchups there, I think the one I was watching it the last day down in Park Queeve, and the Cork half forwards went to war with that famous Limerick half back line. And particularly, even Decky Dahl went really at it with Kyle. And there was a bit of chawing off the ball as well. And I just think that Cork are probably going to feel that they have to go there again. They're going to have to go, and I'm not talking about stupidity. Like, you're talking about physically, manly, going in there and taking belts. It's part of the game, as we all know. And it's just, can they get traction there again? But I suppose the danger is that if that's not on the money, then this match has the potential. And I do think there's going to be a spicy edge to this. I think there's going to be a real spicy edge to this match, because both are going to be looking to dominate the other physically. But I think if Cork are to go at it, you're sending a young Alsatian in there to take on the big Alsatian that's sitting there minding the house. So therefore, you're going to have your argument and your row spot on, if you know what I'm saying. You just can't go in there stupidly. And I think that's one thing that Cork they can't fall into that trap. They can look at that as a reference point and say that was a key area in getting a foothold in the match and giving us a platform. But we have to make sure that we find the sweet spot between aggressive and bending that line, but making sure that we don't get drawn into something silly, because the one thing you can't afford to have is, you couldn't afford to be a man down or anything like that. I'm not saying it will happen, but I just think you have to be mindful that you don't overstep.
Eddie,
I think another big matchup for me is Fitzgibbon and O'Donoghue. Fitzgibbon got an enormous amount of joy in the game down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and he makes Cork tick, lads. When he gets his running game up and going, up and running, Cork, he seems to make Cork tick in that middle third. So, and Will O'Donoghue, he's the enforcer. He likes putting out fires. I think that's going to be a serious matchup, O'Donoghue and himself,
Would you agree, gentlemen? I'm just thinking as we were speaking. Yeah, you're right about Fitzgibbon. Fitzgibbon, to me, is probably in line for one of the hurlers of the years, one of the contenders, having a great year. But Cork traditionally, and Eddie and John, I'd imagine, would have experienced this, right? Like, I remember the All-Ireland a few years ago, Limerick gave me desperate toss in the final. But Cork arrogance straight away would think they have a great chance the following year with Limerick. So they also have that, and they can bring that to the table. Of all the counties that you'd pick in the country, you'd pick Cork for being the most arrogant, and they'd believe they have a chance. So they're also kind of armed with that they always had that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and you know what? It's not a criticism either. I think
it's not. No.
I agree with you, Ciarán. I think the word is like an arrogance can sometimes be. You can say, well, that's just super confidence. But I suppose if you're Cork, it's super confidence. If it's all the rest of us, it's Cork arrogance. But they have that belief that they're capable of doing that. And they went down to Limerick, I think, was it 2019?
Yeah.
Did they beat them in the first round? So they have it in the locker, and I suppose it's just making sure that they bring it in the right way.
Hey.
Well, they're the exact same as Kilkenny. Like tradition comes into
it.
I'll have to cut you off there, John. I'll have to cut you off there, Mull.
No, not arrogant.
John, Kilkenny never wins about bugs.
It comes back to it. It's the belief. It's the belief that we are Cork. We are better than Limerick. They won't be in awe of Limerick, like probably other teams are in awe of Limerick and saying, Jesus, they're nearly 3 or 4 points down before the ball.
In recent years, they should be.
Well,
no, I know what you're saying.
No, you're right, John. Like in fairness, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Cork for the full hour showed no respect to Limerick whatsoever. No respect. And I've yet to see a team do that to Limerick the last 6 years.
Yeah.
We'll come back to the verdicts at the end, men. But Eddie, I want to throw one to you quickly. What would Brian Cody have said if you said, Brian, I know we're playing All-Ireland semi-final next week, but there's a harness race on down in Dunmanway, and I think I can get my first winner as a jockey. I'm talking about.
I tell you what now.
Go on.
I tell you straight up, Mixer, you wouldn't ask.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't ask. I remember, like, he had a great way with Brian. If you kind of had something you wanted to ask him, he'd answer you with a question. So you get a question back, and you went, "Oh gosh," and it just made you. So, like, if you were asking for something, you just generally, unless it was something you really, really, really wanted, you just went no. Because look, I suppose it's single-mindedness, but I suppose that's what's different with some of these Limerick lads. I think they're not afraid to be themselves. But
yeah.
These lads, when you think of it too, right, strip down the kind of life outside of the hurling pitch and all that stuff, and that's great to see lads being able to be themselves. Jesus, however, lads, he's up on 2 wheels behind an animal. Like, there's so much can go wrong. Like, do you know what I mean? So you'd imagine, Jesus, like you'd say, I'd be very interested, curious to be a fly on the wall, and did that conversation take place? Did John Kiley and the boys know about it and go, yeah, work away there, Kiley, grand, let us know how you get on. What price is he? Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. But at the same time, don't tell me as a manager, you'd be going, oh, Jesus, I don't know. Do you know that there's obviously a risk involved, but sure, look, it's all good in the hood right now.
Harness racing actually a hell of a lot safer, to be fair, than normal racing. I'll tell you a good one actually. Mikey Fogarty, the former jockey, rode a winner in Galway 3 days before togging out in a Wexford senior hurling final. Now that's a different conversation to have with a manager, I think, now, to be honest with you. Boys, we'll just do a little segue before we go into the other semi-final. Mull, I'd throw it to you straight away, obviously, because it's involving your own county, and I wouldn't say you were expecting it. But Davy has stepped down as Waterford manager after 2 years in charge. I'd imagine you're fairly surprised.
I am. Well, look, I suppose, the last week or two, we've had 2 tragedies down here. Those two kids were killed, and Michael Grant over in Magaluf. I'd know Michael, I would have been friendly with him over the years. So this has come as a major surprise. So all the talk is possibly surrounding those 2 tragedies. And I suppose this is probably come out of nowhere. So now, look, you would have been hearing rumblings, and this is going to happen, and it's no different to during the year that you'd be hearing this and hearing that, and sometimes I'd always take that with a pinch of salt until it actually happens. And the fact that it, when it broke last night, I was kind of going, Jesus, wow, that is a bit of a surprise. It is a bit of a shock, and yeah, I look. Only time will tell. What were the reasons for it? Was it Davy wanted to step away? Did he want to take time out from inter-county management? Did the county board want change? Did the players want change? And for me, I think it's disappointing for Waterford as a whole, because I think we've seen within the Munster campaign that he was building something nice. There was something to build on going into 2025 and who knows, maybe even 2026. Now, would I have said that after the league campaign? Absolutely not. Would I have said it after last year's championship campaign? No, I wouldn't. But maybe what got lost in the league campaign as well, that he was down an enormous amount of bodies. But one thing to his credit, he blooded an enormous amount of players in that league. And I'd say he was blooding an awful lot of them players in the league with a view to 2025 and maybe 2026. So yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher. And the killing thing from a Waterford point of view now, like we're not getting any continuity. This is our 5th manager now. And the next manager that comes in, it's going to be our 5th manager now within the last 6 years. And that's not good, that is not good. And, whatever manager comes in now, he's going to be starting from scratch. What type of style is he going to bring to the table? Davy was after kind of breaking away from, the sweeper system. He was kind of gone a bit more, pushing a few more bodies forward, bit more conventional, which was great to see. And yeah, it's a big one now for the county board, because I think this Waterford team, possibly the lifespan of this team is probably, is there another year, 2, maybe max left in this team? We see the state of Waterford hurling at the moment, underage. Our club competitions are, lackluster. They're not great. So from a club point of view, things are probably struggling as well. You have the Ballygunner dominance. So Waterford hurling is most certainly at a crossroads, and it's going to be, I think the county board now have to step back and say, right, we have to get the right appointment going forward for the next couple of years. That's going to marry everything together and try and put something in place that will put a structure in place that has a pathway to Waterford improving over the next couple of years, and will leave us in a good place for the next 5 to 6 years. And that's going to be very, very difficult, in finding the right person to do that. It's going to be a big, big ask for the county board.
Will John Mullane be putting his hat into the ring with Eddie Brennan as head coach?
Well, look, I would like to say in time that myself and Eddie might have a crack at it, but I'm right now, Jesus, as I said before, I would love to get back back involved with Waterford GA. I would love to get back in some capacity, but you know, if I was going to get back involved, I think the timing would have to be right. And right now, I've a young family. I have a nice balance in my life. You know, I'm able to go off watching my kids play their games, bring them to training, do a bit of training with them. I'm involved heavily with my club up there. So as of now, you know, I just don't have the time.
Damn it!
And it's more so that.
Damn it, Manal.
Well, look, Eddie, all in time. But look, Eddie, if you want to,
you're telling me there's a chance?
I'm sure there's plenty of fellas. And hey, you wouldn't know, Eddie. You made a call a couple of weeks ago, Jesus, and I was kind of half laughing at you, saying, Jesus, we might have a straight swap, Davy going to Galway and Henry going to Waterford. I don't think anybody will be laughing at that comment now.
The transfer deadline, get it done.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Come here, John. You were sounding like a Premiership manager over a Premiership team who were at the bottom of the table in relegation and using all the squad, blooding all the new players. No, come here. I wasn't actually shocked. Now, to be fair, when he pulled the pin, I wasn't. To be fair to him, it was his second stunt. This time around, obviously improved a nice little bit. But when I look at Davy, and I'm only going to guess here, surely 10 to 12 years that he's involved in managerial inter-county teams.
Oh, go again, Ciarán. Go again. Middle of 08. All the way, middle of 08, went down to Waterford, all the way through. Even the year he took out from men's inter-county, he was coach with Cork. So you're basically looking middle of 08 to, you know, end of May 2024.
Yeah, I know myself now. I'm back in Bond with Patrick Swell this year. I took a bit of a sabbatical, and I usually take a bit of a break. But you come back twice as fresh. Your imagination has gone through the roof. Your ideas have gone through the roof. So I'd imagine when you're in something that length of time, you know, there is a certain amount of burnout. There is a certain amount of kind of staying a bit stale. So I wasn't surprised. Really that he pulled the pin. But having said that, as the two boys said there's a possibility there could be a little spin to Galway, or there's a possibility there could be a little spin up to Dublin. Who knows? Only time will tell.
I tell you, your idea of a sabbatical and Davy's are a bit different. He was gone from Clare. I think he was gone from Clare maybe 10 to 11 days when he was named as Wexford manager. So to say a week is a long time in politics, but a couple of weeks could be a long time in the GA as well. So very interesting to see his next move. I reckon he'll be managing an inter-county team in 2025. Which one of 2, 3 or 4, I wouldn't be sure, but I'd be very surprised if he's not managing a county in 2025, most likely in Leinster, I would say. Eddie, we'll throw it over to you. The other semi-final, Clare and Kilkenny, you kind of teed it up there. Like, Clare had to win this year's Munster final. That was kind of the narrative, or they'd lost to Limerick 3 times in a row. It happened. It's kind of been said again. They have to win this game, or they're losing to Kilkenny 3 times in a row in a semi-final. Does that bring pressure? Does that bring extra motivation? What's your own kind of sense of it?
Well, it should. I suppose it should bring motivation. And I felt very much last year facing into the same fixture. I was deeply worried, I suppose, that this could be it for Clare, because I thought they were in a real good place last year, and they proved that coming down the straight in the second half. They nearly got over the line and, you know, playing to their strengths, which they have good firepower. But I suppose a year further on down the line and a year more of scars and disappointments, you know, a Munster final defeat behind them, I suppose it's probably what's in their heads right now. It should be a motivating factor for them. They should probably look back and say, you know, that they won the league final in fine style over Kilkenny, albeit that fallow period that almost let Kilkenny off the hook that day. But at the same time, I think there's a little bit more question marks about them this year now. We don't know what kind of order they are, and that can make them a very dangerous animal to assess from a Kilkenny perspective, because you're kind of looking at it going, well, they could be a bit damaged by the Munster final. They could have a few little doubts starting to creep into their group after 5 years under loan. But that can sometimes be, you know, something that can maybe pull the rug from underneath you too. They could land into this match very, very driven. So I suppose therein is where I think this match is to be won. It depends what Clare team arrives in. Obviously, he has a few little dilemmas as regards tactics, because He done it the last day by throwing O'Donnell out centre forward and a few little things like that. Shanahan into the corner, and the manner in which even Shanahan got into the team is brilliant. Like, you know, having played very little time, and I do think he's a guy that could be utilised a bit more because he's a big, robust, physical fella able to fetch ball. And he could be a right handful for a full back.
Just on that, Mull, he would occupy Hugh Lawler, wouldn't he? That's kind of something I'm thinking there. He occupies Hugh Lawler, which means O'Donnell is tagged by someone else. Maybe not. Like, I in an ideal world, if I was Kilkenny manager, I'd nearly have Hugh going to 3 or 6 if O'Donnell was playing centre forward or full forward. But Shannon could occupy Lawler under that high ball and keep him in at the edge of the square. Eddie?
Was that to me?
Yeah.
No, that's the dilemma. And Kilkenny, to be fair, generally trust your players in your positions. Always down through the years, you'll have an odd little man marker here and there, and a specific job. But by and large, then you'll trust the lads and deal with it. But the likes of that dynamic, that kind of axis, could present Kilkenny with a challenge, because if you have Shane O'Donnell playing at centre forward, maybe on Richie Reid or Paddy Deegan, they now have to mark him very tightly. You can't play zonal, you can't sit. You have to go and take him. And in that, then you're potentially, if he goes out deep, you leave a little gap, and Kilkenny don't like to do that. So I suppose what way Clare set up will be very interesting. I think that to me is probably the question mark. If Tony Kelly is midfield, I don't see Mikey Butler following him out there. If he's in around the forwards, then that little trilogy of man marking comes again to the fore. And if you're Tony Kelly, I'd almost be asking Loan, I want him. Do you know, that's the way you should be in sport. And especially when you have a nemesis of a cornerback that has done what Mikey Butler has done to Tony Kelly for 2 seasons. Well, sometimes as a subplot or a sideshow of the main show, you almost say, listen, I'll take him.
Sorry now to put you on the spot. Was there a case in your career where that arose?
There was a lad against Offaly there one year.
I don't think I ever got near you, to be honest with you. I might have seen the soles of your boots, all right.
I think there was times that, like, for myself and Mullane, and geez, we played we were starting when Ciarán was kind of coming to the end of his career, and there was a lot of quality backs around at the time. There was none of me fancied marking, but you just had to relish, embrace it. And there was times there where you go, yeah, who is it? It's Owen Murphy, or it's Brian Murphy, it's Sherlock, it's Paul Curran. You just had to suck it up and say, right, you know what? There's no place for hiding. You go and you try break even with them or whatever it is. So, but just on that, I think that will be interesting. It's Clare's tactical approach will possibly, throw a curveball at Kilkenny, or, has the potential to cause a bit of unrest. And it's maybe then the second tactical boomerang you throw at them as well, could be it. So I think I'm waiting to see what Clare are going to bring, because I think Kilkenny have settled down nicely since that league final. I think there's a nice look about this Kilkenny team now. They look to be a little bit more driven this year. So I'd just be very interested to see, because I think Derek has shown a nice little flexibility in how he approaches matches tactically. He has shown a little bit of tactical nuance there that I like.
Mull, I just throw one to you. It's one area that is still kind of up in the air almost from a Clare point of view. So who's going to hit the freeze on Sunday?
Yeah.
And do they have like that 9 out of 10 free taker? It probably cost them in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. It's cost them at various stages. Like, they've 3 or 4 different free takers at different stages. It could be Duggan, it could be Kelly, it could be Rogers, it could be Aidan McCarthy. I'd expect Mark Rogers to hit them on Sunday. But and he's a brilliant free taker, and he takes them with Scariff O'Gunlow, but he's probably not road tested at county level. Would that be any sort of a worry, Mull, going into Saturday?
Oh, 100%. And Eddie and Ciarán, I'll tell you, like, there's hit and freeze down in Thurles, there's hit and freeze down in Parky Queens, there's hit and freeze down in Nolan Park. Hit and freeze in Crow Park brings a different type of pressure. We've seen time and time again, lads have a tendency to struggle and hit and freeze. Even the best of players have a tendency to struggle to hit and freeze up in Crow Park. The wind is kind of swirl as well. So yeah, that is going to be a bit of a head scratcher for Brian Loan. And the thing is, if Rogers steps up to hit the freeze, has he hit and freeze in Crow Park before? he hasn't.
He actually hit them in last year's semi-final, to be fair.
Oh, right.
But he missed a couple. Like, that was even... He was on the freeze after Kelly maybe been off target for the quarter-final, I think.
You're right. You're right. And he missed a few. Now, the big question is, will they start Aidan McCarthy? Or will they hold Aidan McCarthy? Shannon went so well, and I echo what Eddie said there. Like, with Shannon coming in, he can kind of occupy you Lawler. So then, McCarthy played so well in the league final against Kilkenny. He was 2-8 or 2-9 he scored, and hit the freeze so well in that match.
I'd be worried about his confidence overall. I think he has been up and down this year and dipping now at a bad time.
Yeah, I don't think they will start him. I think they will start Shannon. But the big one for me is Mikey Butler. Will Mikey Butler pick up Shane O'Donnell? If Shane O'Donnell goes out centre forward, we touched on it last week. I think Derek Ling will detail Mikey Butler to pick up Shane O'Donnell, and if Kelly starts midfield, I think Mikey Carey will go in and pick up Kelly midfield, with Richie Reid possibly going back, sweeping up coming in around that half back line. The only thing, if I was O'Donnell, I think Mikey Butler is a great man marker. He's a great lad that loves to tag a lad when he's going out around the middle third. But I think where people have gotten a bit of joy out of Mikey Butler is where he just stay in the full forward line. We've seen with McDonald, he got the goal. Peter Casey got a couple of scores last week or last year. And if I was O'Donnell, and if he is getting tagged by Mikey Butler, I would be saying, right, I'd bring him back into I'd leave Shanahan on you Lawler. And O'Donnell is so good in the air, lads. If O'Donnell goes in around corner forward, he might have the aerial, advantage over Mikey Butler's. But there's going to be some fascinating, matchups again in how they go about it. We've seen the last day out, Cleary, he followed Lee Chin out. I'm sure now he might be detailed to mark TJ Reid. I think the big one from a Clare point of view is how they go about, picking up Mullane, trying to negate his influence on the game. We seen last year he had a major influence on the game, and he was possibly, a big reason why Kilkenny pushed on and won that game. And you go back then, Owen Cody and Adam Hogan. Adam Hogan was very good in the league final, and Cody got man of the match. But you go back to last year's fixture, Cody was brilliant, and Cody comes alive in Crow Park. So again, there's going to be some fascinating matchups.
What do you make, Ciarán? Have Clare kind of bounced back and re-energised since the Munster final? And I know you've always been a big kind of fan of Kilkenny from afar, obviously, and you always rate them very, very highly. How do you see this one going?
I'd be a bit like Eddie there. I thought they were probably positioned a lot better this time last year. I think they're after slipping. Even the fundamentals, their puck-out strategy is very poor. They're making an awful lot of unforced errors. They possibly could have hung about 2-5 against Limerick in the first half. Easy soft out goal straight at Nicky. Ultimately, it's going to come down to Clare's defence won't be good enough to hold Kilkenny's forward. Kilkenny's forwards are absolute elite. And if they click, any six backs are going to find it very hard. They're not convincing in the full back. Even Conlon was exposed a few times down the middle. I think his confidence has gone a bit. Usually when it's touch one, hand two, gone, there's one or two extra touches. So they're not possibly where they were this time last year. And I would have been kind of trumpeting on several occasions. They're the one team that are capable of derailing Limerick. My mindset has totally changed now. They've gone back a bit. Do I give them a chance against Kilkenny? You have to give them a chance to semi-final. But, traditionally on the line, they're very slow. Last year, I think it was the 60th minute when they produced their first sub. And you could have brought one in after 20 minutes. So if that continues, they're going to be under severe pressure. And in around Shane O'Donnell, to be fair, he's the one player, no matter what defender you put in, I think he's unmarkable because I think he's a great struggle. He's been a brilliant player this year for Clare. Whether he's half forward, 11, 3 or 5, he's no problem contesting the ball on grass, or he's no issue going 50-50. And you can't say that about too many forwards this year. So he's the one player for me on the Clare team that actually has probably dragged them, if you like, into a semi-final. And I don't think Derek Ling would probably put Mikey Butler. I don't know who he'll put on him. I think he'd be clever in that because O'Donnell is very strong on a high ball. But to me, like when you look at TJ, Mullane, Donnelly, Billy Ryan, Owen Cody, Mossy Keown, if 4 of them come to the party, Kilkenny or Clare are going to be under serious pressure.
Well, I'll throw it back to you, Ciarán, and we touched on this last week. If Mikey Butler ain't detailed to pick up O'Donnell, right? Paddy Deegan's a centre-back. So Paddy Deegan is a kind of a loose centre-back, wants to hit an enormous amount of the ball. Richie Reid, similar. So now, if O'Donnell is out centre-forward, who do you now detail to mark him if you're not going to put Mikey Butler on him?
Oh, if you're looking at, well, if it was me personally, and if I was going to go down that route, and I possibly wouldn't go down that route, because as you said, Paddy Deegan's doing a super job, very versatile player, the same with Richie Reid, in and out, like for like. And Paddy Deegan is probably a bit like Dan Morrissey, the unsung hero in Kilkenny, does an awful lot of great work. But for me, if I was to put a man marker on Shane O'Donnell, I'd be probably looking at, Mikey Carey possibly is a tough enough guy. I'd probably, if they were going to, but I don't think Derek Ling will do that now, to be fair. I think he'll hold his shape and he'll probably come up with whatever he's going to come up with. But I don't think he's going to designate it. I wouldn't, if I was him, I wouldn't be designated the Berth Channel. That's myself personally.
Well, they done it on Donald Burke. Donald Burke was something similar, number 11, kind of peeling off, and they didn't detail Paddy Deegan to pick up Donald Burke. They brought Mikey Butler out on Donald Burke, so I most certainly won't be ruling out, no.
No, there's a possibility they could. And go back to the free taking, right? And you're 110% right. And this is the fundamentals again. Like, most good, quality, solid free takers are going to come off the field scoring about 10, 13, 14 points. And you need to be nailing 9 out of 10 of those, especially above Croke Park in the semi-final. And if it isn't McCarthy, I'd be possibly in training, I'd be giving Kelly the job, right? Because Kelly's on the way back. And if he nails the first 3 or 4, that would be a huge lift for Clare. It would be a huge lift for the supporters also. And in fairness to Kelly, he's an experienced guy. He's big shoulder. He should be demanding that, as Eddie said a while ago. You want to be on your best cinders. You want extra pressure on the big day. He's a big player, a big fish, above in Croke Park. He should be sent low. And by the way, I look after the free. That's what it's going to take, that type of kind of thinking.
Ciarán, you've already given what you reckon is one of the All-Ireland finalists anyway. It seems like you think Kilkenny will beat Clare. Am I stupid to ask who will they be faced in the All-Ireland final?
No, but Eddie said earlier on, and he was right. Eddie was right, like when you said there, you couldn't make a case for 2 other teams on merit that should be in Croke Park for the semi-final. And to me, the 2 teams that appear to be the top of the pile and probably just boiling and simmering at the right time is Kilkenny and Tipperary. Sorry, Kilkenny and Limerick.
The stew is simmering, Ciarán. You have the ladle in, you're stewing it around.
And come here. And the big one then here, I suppose it's a bit early to be talking about it. The big one then is, are Kilkenny going to come? I suppose it's a bit early.
We'll see. They have to come on Saturday first anyway. Eddie,
revealed, yeah.
Eddie, what do you reckon? What will be the All-Ireland final pairing?
It looks to be angling towards, a trilogy of All-Irelands. Potentially it's there, it's on the horizon, and on form they look to be the 2 best placed teams to take each other on. But I think you could make a case for both the other 2 to maybe buck the trend and have a repeat of 2013. I think it's hard to see both of them. It's probably unlikely that both of them will take out the provincial champions. But I don't know. It's you're trying to make a case because both of them, Cork and Clare, are seen as the underdog, the slight underdog in both matches to take them. And I think a lot has to go right for both of them. And there's probably the and ifs and buts. But we've often said it here on the pod that when it comes to trust, and if you're on your last chip in Vegas, baby, and you're saying, are you going to put it on, are you going to put it on Limerick? Are you going to put it on Kilkenny ahead of the other two? I think you are, because you know what you're going to get out of them every day. The others, there's slight question marks about the consistency aspect.
I think the great part of that, though, Eddie, is that there is that element of doubt that you think.
Oh, there is, yeah.
That's the great thing coming into this weekend. If Cork perform, like, they have an outstanding chance. If Clare perform, they'll probably win. But it's just the doubts about it. That's the thing, and that's what makes it so intriguing.
But Mike, of the two semi-finals, I would be inclined to, if I could pick an upset, I would be inclined to go for Cork Limerick rather than their Kilkenny.
Okay. You've nailed your colours to the epitaph is written for Clare already for 2024, Ciarán, according to you now.
Well, as I said, I was a totally different mind frame this time last year, and I'm going what I'm seeing. I'm going by what I'm watching. And, the simple things I said, the puck out strategy, not there for 70 minutes. The execution of the pass, not there for 70 minutes. Picking the right pass. At inter-county level now, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
In a quarterfinal, getting to the top tier. There's just elementary, silly, unforced errors that the rest of the team that are above them aren't making.
Mull, is it a clean sweep? Is it a Kilkenny Limerick All-Ireland final in your view, or will there be an upset?
For me, I think I'll go to the first game, Clare and Kilkenny. I concur with what Ciarán said about that Clare are not humming in regards to the previous 2 years. But one thing that's in their favour is that they're not being as talked up as much as the previous 2 years. The previous 2 years were coming off the back of playing so well in the Munster finals. And everyone's saying they're going to be Kilkenny, they're going to be Kilkenny. And that plays into Kilkenny's hands. And Kilkenny love that. There's none of that talk. There's expectation levels are low. Everyone is tipping Kilkenny. And I think that will help Clare the weekend.
But are you still tipping Kilkenny?
But when it comes down to it, as Eddie touched on, there's one sure thing: Kilkenny will rock up an All-Ireland semi-final day. They will perform, and I think if they perform and they bring the levels that they're bringing, that they brought against Dublin, I think they'll win the match. Limerick, Cork, again, it's. I go back to that game between Limerick and Cork in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Ciarán touched on it. For the first half of that match, Limerick were dreadful. Cork were brilliant. Do I see Limerick being as bad again and having another half of that again? I don't. I think two things that are going to have to happen if Cork are to prevail. Cork are going to have to play extremely well, going to have to play to their max, and Limerick's levels are going to have to drop. And I just don't see Limerick's levels drop. I think Limerick, like Kilkenny, will rock up. They know what's expected of them when they come to Croke Park. I think they'll deliver a performance, and I think they'll deliver a performance that will be good enough to get them over the line. So for me,
what Limerick don't do in Croke Park, lads, is they don't concede goals.
Yeah.
And that's the key for me. If Cork are to beat them, they're going to need goals. Limerick don't concede goals in Croke Park.
Just trying to think off the top of my head, what's the most amount of goals they conceded in a game?
Galway, was it Galway in the All-Ireland? Kilkenny 2 last year, but Galway, but it's been sparing. It's been very, very few.
Yeah.
They generally don't cough up a whole lot of goals.
Don't know if it's ever been more than 2, now that you say it. Going all
3 in the All-Ireland in 18.
3 in... No, they got the 3. No, they got the 3. Did they concede 3?
Did they not get... Did Galway not get...
No, 3-15 to 2-16, I think that was.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, fair point. I think Cork are going to...
And I go back to it as well, right? I think who are going to have a major say on how these games are going to play out are going to be the 4 goalkeepers. And I think for me, Kilkenny and Limerick have the best keepers in the country. And we'll go back to it, hitting those targets, both Owen Murphy and Nicky Quaid, who for me, Nicky Quaid, who's in hurler of the year form, I think they will deliver and they will hit those targets. And I think if they hit those targets, it'll be good enough to get both teams over the line.
Well, we've analysed it every which way. 2 brilliant All-Ireland semi-finals to look forward at the weekend. That's it for a packed show this week. My thanks to Eddie Brennan and John Mullane, and big thanks to special guest Ciarán Carey for joining me. We'll be back next Monday to review all the All-Ireland semi-final action. And in the meantime, don't forget to rate, review and follow the show on Apple, Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks a million for listening, and goodbye.